If you want to know Hebrew and use it and not just learn it in class over and over again, you have to see this video. So what's up, my friends? Shalom, my name is Noah and I teach Hebrew. I live in Tel Aviv, and today's lesson is super important because I always teach you words and rules and different Hebrew stuff, but today we're going to talk about probably the most important thing when you learn anything, including language, which is how to learn. What are the ways to work with all the vocabulary that you learn and the rules and the Hebrew books, textbooks, and things that you learn in your class and in the course, in the program with your teacher? What can you do to not just learn it for the next 5, 6, 10, 20 years, but actually use it as quickly as possible? So I want to tell you first about my journey with learning a language, English in my case, and what you can do immediately to apply it in order to be able to speak and communicate, as I'm doing right now, with a language that is not my mother tongue and was super hard for me to learn. Let me tell you, it took a long time until I figured by accident something that I didn't meant to discover. So we're going to talk about how to do it and how can you apply it. But first I want to tell you in short my story. So I started learning English at the age of 8, which is when we start English here in Israel, and it's one of the two major subjects in school. It's math and English. So they invest a lot of hours and we learn it very seriously, and we have tests, and it's, as I said, one of the most important subjects in school. So there's a lot of emphasis on English. Nonetheless, by the age of 15, after learning since the age of 8, I still couldn't say one sentence in English to save my life, which was very frustrating. In that period of time, I learned in class, so a lot of my classmates couldn't speak either, but they could fool the teacher because they understood the rules, the grammar, and so they passed the test. I couldn't even do that. I couldn't even fool my teacher because I didn't understand anything. In fact, till this day, I don't know any grammar rule. I know there's names like present simple or past perfect. I know some of the names, but I truly don't know what they mean or what happens in this rule. I have no idea. So do I make mistakes in English? Yeah, probably, of course, it's not my mother tongue, but I can speak. And I can tell you that some of my friends who I know till this day, and they can explain the grammar better than me any day, still can't speak at all. And so I want to tell you my story and how can you use it to be able to be proficient in the language, never perfect, but proficient, and use it and communicate and enjoy it and have fun while learning and increase your vocabulary and your ability to talk to people all the time. So the story starts when I was 15. As I told you, I still couldn't say anything in English to save my life. And then cable TV came to Israel. I know, I'm so old. Okay, so cable TV came to Israel, and so there was this show. I don't remember, I think it was Sky One, a channel maybe from the UK. I'm not even sure, but they didn't have subtitles, and they had this show with this cute actor, Family Ties. And yes, I fell in love with Michael J. Fox. Isn't he dreamy? I mean, I still think he is. So yeah, don't judge. I was 15 and he was super cute. He still is. And I kind of fell in love with him, you know, teenage love. And I wanted to see him. So every day after school, we had an episode of this series called Family Ties. And it was about, I don't know, half hour. How long is it usually? And I would watch it because he was cute. I didn't understand any word whatsoever, but I could understand the general idea of the scene because they were very good actors there. So I saw the gestures, the facial expressions, the tone, the set. I kind of figured, if they fought or if there was something romantic, or kind of figured the general idea, because we create connections between things. We can understand the idea of something without understanding the language. But I couldn't understand a word, but I kept on watching. I didn't do it intentionally to learn a language. As I said, I just thought it was cute. But after a few short months, I started understanding some of the words. I was just sitting there and telling myself, oh wait, I know what this means. So what happened to me? Was it magic? Actually, not only that it wasn't magic, it was exactly what all of us did. You too, you included. Yeah, you're watching me, you did it as well, when we learned our mother tongue. So basically, none of us knew any grammar, any rules, reading, writing. We didn't know it when we started speaking, right? We just listened and heard people speak and then kind of imitated them and try to speak, and we did many things, but basically, and it's really the basics, because we did other things, we had movies and stories being read and people teaching us, so I'm going to address that as well. But basically, the basics of everything is just being in the surrounding of this language and hearing things over and over and over and over, and no rules. And I can tell you that even with Hebrew, until I started and wanted to become a Hebrew teacher, I did not know the Hebrew rules. Yes, we learned them in school, but I have to say it didn't really interest me back then, so I didn't really invest, and I didn't understand it. And if you ask most native speakers, they don't remember or even know the rules. And yeah, I spoke very good Hebrew, even though I didn't know it. I'm sure you speak very good, I know, English, French, German, doesn't matter, without knowing or thinking about the rules, because this is how the mechanism of our brain, when we learn a language, works. And so let's see what I did there that can help you people, because this is really a great way, and it does work. True, it doesn't take a day or a week, but none of the methods to learning anything, especially a language, never takes a day or a week. There are things to make it faster, but right now we're talking about just learning, not fast or slow, but just learning and kind of getting the familiarity of the language, soaking in the language, and being able to understand, and then later on speaking. And it does work amazingly. So what did I do there that you can do right now? So the first thing I did is I listened. I just listened. It wasn't 10 hours every day or 5 hours every day. It was about half an hour if I was lucky, and or two episodes, half an hour, almost every day that I've heard English. And I didn't have subtitles. I didn't have anywhere to run to. I just had to listen and to watch the dynamics between the actors, what created eventually connections between things that I saw and understood and the language that I didn't initially understand, but my brain started creating connections, which is what we do when we're babies. And it's even easier when we're grown-ups because we have more connections to build upon. The second thing that happened is, because I wasn't intentional in learning a language, I didn't mean to learn a language when I watched these videos, what happened is that I wasn't aiming or trying to understand each and every word, and I didn't get angry or frustrated because I don't understand, because I didn't mean to understand. It's just something that happened because I was open and having fun and listening to the language, just like babies and little kids. They're not frustrated. They're very open. They're not angry. They're not trying to remember things. They're just listening, and their brain is super open, and we can be as open as them. Yes, I know people say as we grow older, it's harder to learn new things. I think one of the things and the reasons that is harder because we have so much emotional weight. And when we don't have this emotional weight, then our mind, our consciousness, our brain is so much more open to getting new information and retaining this information and being able to use it when we want to use it. So no anger, no frustration, just sitting there and soaking in the language. Thirdly, yes, I did continue learning in school, which is a very important point, because maybe I could have done it without it, but it would have taken much, much longer. The fact that I kept on learning vocabulary, reading, and all that was great now because it was backed up by listening and immersing myself with this language without even living in a country that people speak English, because I don't live in a English-speaking country, and still just the fact that I listened a little bit every day was different. When I came to my class, I was in a different mind zone. Things were so much easier to get in, and to, like a sponge. My brain was like a sponge because I listened to it every day. So when I went to class, the combination of learning intentionally and then learning unintentionally, this combination, yeah, it was the winner. Okay, I do have to say that the missing part in this story was the speaking part. I understood very well by a certain point, but still couldn't speak. I was afraid to speak. It felt funny to speak, weird in my mouth. So this requires something different. And because my dream was always to be a singer and an actress, I learned and used theater and music in order to speak, and this is what I do today with my students. But first thing, before I started speaking, I understood, and it's like when we're babies, right? This is how our brain works. We learn, we listen, we understand, and then we start being active and speak. So if I had to have a formula to learning Hebrew, or any language by that matter, it doesn't really matter, but I'm a Hebrew teacher, so we're talking about Hebrew. If I had to give a formula, I would say, yes, it's very good, it's wonderful to go to a private teacher, to a program, Ulpan if you're in Israel, if you're outside of Israel, a digital course or any course. Take the help that you can get, find a good place, a good teacher, a good program, but also back it up with listening. If you have it in the program, wonderful, then it's a great program. If you don't have it in this program, in this class with your teacher, then take the initiative to do it by yourself and find either a great show that you love in Hebrew, or a book that you can read and also listen to. Something that is fun, maybe with songs, maybe without songs, but something that is interesting, not too hard, not too easy, depending on your level, and something that you can maybe read a few times, not too long, right? Not too long, not super short. Really finding the correct book, but that can also be a great way for you to practice listening and reading and vocabulary, and also speaking if you read it out loud. These combinations really, they create magic. Always go back to the basic natural mechanism that we have for learning a language. We changed it in modern times for some reason. Sitting in class for 45 minutes, 60 minutes, I don't know, listening to the teacher speak, trying to memorize words, creating boring sentences that are irrelevant for us, learning tons of grammar. This is not the way we learn a language naturally, and it's either don't work or it does, but it's super hard and it takes a long time, and mostly I see that people still don't speak after doing it, just as I didn't speak English, just by learning rules and listening to the teacher speak, and not speaking myself and not hearing things that are interesting to me and stimulating and creative and fun, and that kind of triggered me to wanting to listen to more and do more and hear more. So really, really important to go back to the natural mechanism of our brain. This is how our brain works. Let's work with it, not against it. This is really the golden way, the golden road, the route that will make it possible to learn the language, to know the language, to be proficient in the language, to use it, and most importantly, to feel at home with this new language that you're learning.